Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal Midweek Blitz High School Football Show with your hosts, James Yodice and Geoff Grammer. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Hey, welcome everybody. My name is James Yodice. I am the high school sports editor at the Albuquerque Journal. You are tuned in to the Midweek Blitz, our weekly show on high school athletics, primarily football this time of year. So, got a few things on the docket for you today. We're going to run through some of the top results from Week 8 last week, and we'll certainly talk about some of the top matchups coming up in Week 9, including the big Artesia-Roswell game coming up on Friday. We'll get to that a little bit later. We will run down some of our top stars from Week 8, and we'll give you some updated poll results. Of course, as always, people can vote on this all the way through the end of the week, and we'll announce our winner on Friday night / Saturday morning. And we'll talk about a little volleyball, a little cross country as we end the show. So why don't we just jump into it here? We are down to the last 3 weeks of the high school football season, weeks 9, 10, and 11. All of the districts will be underway by this weekend. Not everybody has started yet. Some of the smaller districts, the 4-team districts, have a 3-week window to do their league play. So many of them are starting this coming Friday. So why don't we jump into last week? We had a good number of teams that were on their bye week, including Cleveland and La Cueva, Artesia, Roswell, and a whole bunch of other teams that had their bye week ahead of the start of their district play. So the schedule was not it was one of our weaker slate of games, but we did have some key games in there as well. Why don't we start in District 2-6A, and the game I covered last Friday. Sandia beat El Dorado 33-14. That was up at Wilson Stadium. Sandia is now 2-0 in district. El Dorado is 0-2. El Dorado's in a bit of a bad spot now, and in fact, their whole season may come down to them having to beat West Mesa on the final week of the season. But for the moment, Sandia going along very nicely. This game was only 7-6 at halftime. Sandia pulled away in the second half. Hunter Maldonado, their senior running back, had a nice second half. So Sandia pulled away, wins 33-14. The defense was tremendous, really, for the Matadors, as it's been all year. I spoke to junior safety Preston Ritchie, who had both an interception in this game and a fumble recovery. So I chatted with him after the game. Here's what he had to say.
So we're here with Sandia Junior strong safety Preston Ritchie. He has a pick tonight and a fumble recovery, part of 5 turnovers for this defense tonight. Talk about how you guys got it done against a good offense.
Hey, we have some dogs on our team, man. They have a great offense, but we game plan hard. We practice hard. I was just right place, right time. That's all.
What was the scheme against this El Dorado offense tonight?
We wanted to play back because we know they can throw it deep. So we had to contain them, and we made sure.
I felt like the conditions were better for you guys tonight. As much as they like to throw it, it was not an easy night to throw the ball.
Of course. That was a big part of this game, and you got to get lucky sometimes, so we love that. We love that.
So you guys have faced some good quarterbacks. You had to face Elijah last week and Brandon tonight. You got another good quarterback in Terrell Griego coming down here next week. Talk about the challenge of Farmington. That's going to be a key game.
Man, we're going to work hard, but they've been dogs for a long time. We lost to them last year, so we're trying to get that back, you know.
And 5 turnovers tonight. You guys got to be thrilled with the way the defense was.
So happy, tonight. And we could have had more. So we always want more.
Okay, so moving along, also from that district last week up in Farmington. Farmington beat West Mesa 49-7. Boy, that's a tough loss for West Mesa. The Mustangs are in a bad spot, too, in that district, along with El Dorado. West Mesa is now 0-2 in that district. That was Farmington's opener in district, and Farmington will be down here to play Sandia this week in a key game. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But West Mesa's in a bad spot. They're 0-2 in district, and that final game of the season that I just referenced between West Mesa and El Dorado is going to be very critical, probably more so for El Dorado than West Mesa. And we're going to get into that a little bit more next week as I start talking about how the playoff picture is coming into focus. But West Mesa, which is playing La Cueva this week, a game that the Mustangs probably would not be expected to win. They might have to beat El Dorado on that last week to avoid finishing in last place in that district. But Farmington, another strong performance. That's a good balanced club. They're a big team. They've rebounded nicely from that hiccup recently at Rio Rancho. So Farmington now will be playing 4 weeks in a row, and they'll be coming down here to play Sandia. They've got a game, I believe, at home in Farmington against La Cueva the following week, or it might even be the last week. from District 3, Centennial continues to just kind of fly under the radar. Centennial's been playing a lot of good football this year. They beat Hobbs 28-7 last week. Centennial is by far the favorite to win that district. I don't think there's another team that can really stand with them. Las Cruces High School might be the only one, but Centennial continuing to look strong in that district. It would be hard to imagine anybody interrupting them during this district run. A couple of games from last Saturday I wanted to mention briefly. Valley opened their district play against Manzano. They beat Manzano 62-42 up at Wilson Stadium. The Vikings, who I've talked about before, have had a bit of an up-down season, but they put up 62. They had a couple of key interceptions in this game despite the 62 points. It was a first-half interception late in the half that kind of turned this game around. Manzano was driving for a potentially tying touchdown late in the first half. Valley intercepted, went 90 yards the other way, scored right before halftime, and went into halftime up 2 touchdowns. Manzano, as their coach Stephen Johnston told me, never really recovered from that. And then Valley also added a pick 6 later in the game that really kind of sealed things. Valley running back Charles Lopez Burton had a touch over 300 yards in this game, multiple touchdowns, and I visited with him after the game, and here's what he had to say.
So we're visiting with Valley running back Charles Lopez Burton. Had a big day today, over 250 yards rushing, multiple touchdowns for Valley against Manzano today. What was clicking in this offense today?
You know, without my offensive line, you know, nothing's going to happen. So a big shout out to my O-line for getting me started, getting the offense rolling. You know, Book threw some good passes there at the end. So yeah, big shout out to them.
So this game is really close. You guys get a pick right before halftime and turn it into points. How big was that to go into halftime up 2 scores?
You know, it was really major. You know, we practice for situations like this at practice. So it's second nature for us. So the guys know what to do. The guys know how to handle it.
So this team's had some up and downs this year, but now we're into district. You got a district win. That's all that really matters. How is this team feeling about itself?
Definitely. You know, we had a loss. We were missing some of our players back then, but we're healing. We're growing, and we're all gelling together at the perfect time.
Did you get stronger today as the game went on, do you felt?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Do you enjoy that aspect of it, just kind of wearing down a defense?
Yes, I love it. I love it. The best feeling you could ever feel.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities towards success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
So Valley got its start in district. Valley has a key game coming up next week. We'll talk about that next week against Los Alamos, which is coming down here to play Valley at Milne Stadium on Thursday the 19th. That game ultimately will probably decide the district champion in that district. Los Alamos beat Valley last year, so I know Valley would be interested in getting a little payback. And it was a nice win for Valley. Valley needed to get off to a good start in district. And the last game I wanted to visit with about last week was Bloomfield and Silver. This was a rematch of the Class 4A state championship game last year, which Bloomfield won 13-7. So these two teams met in Silver City over the weekend, and Bloomfield beat up on the Colts, a really good defensive team, 28-0, which is an incredibly strong road win for Bloomfield. Now, and as I talked about in a recent column, Bloomfield's defense has been fantastic this year. All of the defenses among the top teams in Class 4A have been really good across the board. It's been maybe the most defensive-minded of all the classifications. This includes Bernalillo, Academy, Moriarty, St. Pius, Silver, Bloomfield, even Portales. There's so much good football being played on the defensive side of the ball. And Portales went down there and put a hurting on Silver. That was a game that I picked incorrectly. I had Silver in this game. Not that I didn't think Bloomfield could win, but I thought it would be a much closer game. So kudos to Bloomfield. That is a fantastic road win and a statement win, a major statement win in Class 4A as we start to sort out how the seeds are going to look for the playoffs coming up here in a few weeks. So some of the other teams in 4A are going to get started with their, including Bloomfield and Silver, are all going to get started with their district play this week. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I mentioned Silver. I had Silver in this game. That was one of the 4 games I missed last week in our weekly prep picks. Myself and Bethany Miller from KOAT here in Albuquerque, we pick games every week. So I finished 14-4 last week. The Silver Bloomfield was the big one, and I missed it, and I felt bad about that one. So I'm sitting shade under 80% for the year. And if you want to view the Journal's prep football picks every week, you can see them, of course, in our print edition on Thursday mornings. If you live here in the Albuquerque metro area, you can view them online at abqjournal.com. They're available starting usually Wednesday evening. And then, of course, I will tweet out a link to these picks sometime Wednesday night or Thursday morning on my Twitter account at James D. Yodice. I usually tweet those out every week just to let people take a look at who we've picked. So, keep an eye on that. We try and have fun with it. It's been a tough season. There have been a lot of close games and a lot of parity up and down the board in a lot of these classifications. So picking games has been a little tougher this year, I'll admit, but that makes it fun. And I always try and put the best games on the list for us to pick, not to pad our stats. Anyway, so we're going to move on. So as we kind of close the book on Week 8, I wanted to talk about some of our Stars of the Week nominees that I chose from Week 8. So I'm going to run down the list, and I'll give you the top 2 vote getters here. So the nominees this week: Elijah Gonzalez, who's been on this list several times, senior running back from Volcano Vista; Joaquin Candelaria, a kid I really enjoyed watching last week, a senior running back from St. Pius. Kid's only 5'4", $127, had a really big second half against Moriarty last week. He was a spark plug, a lot of fun to watch. Jet Stone from Clovis, senior quarterback. I believe he ran for 6 touchdowns. He threw for a touchdown, and he also caught a touchdown pass in this game. So he had a hand in 8 different scores for Clovis, which beat Santa Fe 62-42 in a district game. Andres Jimenez, a senior running back from Manal. Big night for him as Manal went down and beat Lordsburg. Daniel Villegas, a senior running back from Valencia, who had almost 200 yards and rushed for 5 touchdowns as the Jaguars beat Rio Grande. And then the last 2 came from the Valley Manzano game last week. Charles Lopez Burton, who we just mentioned, a shade over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns for Valley, which beat Manzano 62-42. And then Josh Nieto, a senior receiver from Manzano, who I had not seen before until Saturday, but he had a tremendous day, virtually unstoppable in that pass offense for Manzano. 13 catches, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a really fancy 2-point conversion reception. So he was a heck of a lot of fun to watch, and a player that was not on my radar, and I'm going to try and get out and watch him again maybe before the end of the year. So those are our nominees for this week. I'll give you just the top 2 vote getters, and those are the last 2 kids that I mentioned. We have Charles Lopez Burton from Valley, who has 30.4% of our vote so far, and then Josh Nieto from Manzano, 39.7% of the vote. And of course, as I mentioned at the start, listen, if you want to get on and vote, you can do that throughout the week. We like to get the fan bases engaged here, and we want them to get onto abqjournal.com and stuff the ballot box for your guy. That's part of the fun of this. And of course, we're trying to get kids involved from as many different schools as possible. So we'll have the winner in the Journal a little bit later this week. So as far as our last football segment of the day, we're going to talk about Week 9. As I mentioned, quite a few teams had off last week, teams that are in 4 team districts that are going to be playing Weeks 9, 10, and 11. So the big game in the state, one of probably the 2 or 3 biggest games we've had so far this year, is going on at the Wool Bowl in Roswell on Friday, where I'm going to be. And that will be Artesia and Roswell, a Class 5A battle. These are the top 2 ranked teams in 5A. These are the top 2 teams in the state overall, according to the latest MaxPreps.com rankings, which includes everybody. So that poll has those 2 as the best 2 in the state, regardless of class. So both of these teams are 7-0, and they're both coming off their bye week last week. So we've got just a really fascinating matchup here between 2 teams that know each other, 2 coaches that know each other, 2 communities that know each other. You've got 2 offenses that score prodigiously, and you've got 2 really good defenses in this game. Coach Lynn from Roswell mentioned to me the other day that the Artesia defense that they'll be facing on Friday is the best Artesia defense he's seen since he has been at Roswell, which is saying a lot. And I've seen Artesia a little bit this year. It's a really strong defensive unit. Both these teams can score. Both of them average over 40 points a game. I was interested to find out that both of these teams beat their opponents by an average of 37 points a game. Both of them. which I thought was a really symmetrical statistic to throw out there. And these teams have played largely against really good competition. Roswell has beaten 5 6A schools, That includes Carlsbad and Hobbs and Las Lunas and Santa Fe. Roswell's beaten some really good teams. Hobbs and Las Lunas among them. And Roswell dominated all of the 6A schools they played on their schedule. So that was really impressive. Plus, Roswell has played Piedra Vista and Lovington. Artesia's played several 6A schools, Carlsbad and Hobbs. Plus, they have that victory over Cleveland in the middle of September, 36-34. Artesia's also played several other good teams. Roswell's schedule has probably been a smidge harder than Artesia's, given the overall competition. Artesia had games against Santa Teresa and Belen. All of Roswell's competition, all of those are really strong teams. So what we've got is 2 tremendous offenses led by Nia Estrada, the Artesia quarterback, and Manny Fuentes, the Roswell quarterback, who Coach Lynn believes are maybe the 2 best quarterbacks in the state. You'd have a hard time telling me any different. There are some really good 6A quarterbacks obviously out there, but these are the 2 best 5A quarterbacks out there for sure in this game. And we've got weapons galore on both sides of the ball. Roswell is probably the more experienced team of the 2. Roswell's probably more of a senior-dominated roster than Artesia. And Coach Lynn, right from the start, when I spoke to him in August, he felt all along that he had a team that was going to challenge for a blue trophy. And so we've all been looking forward to this game for many weeks now. So 7 o'clock Friday at the Wool Bowl in Roswell. As a quick sidebar, this is a stadium near and dear to my heart. The first 2 championship games I ever covered for the Journal were at this stadium in 1986, which ages me, I suppose. December of 86, we had a doubleheader at the Wool Bowl that day. Highland and Roswell, Coach Gentry, Coach Bradley playing in the big school final in the afternoon, and then Lovington and Ruidoso played in the 3A state final in the evening. So I don't get a chance to get down to Wool Bowl very much. I'm very excited to get down there and watch this game. Coach Lynn believes we could have 8,000 or 10,000 people attending this game, and it should just be a fantastic and electric environment. So I'm excited to get down there. And there's certainly many other games to keep an eye on this weekend. Excuse me again. As we think about 4A football, the district with Portales, Lovington, Albuquerque, Academy, and Bernalillo, they're going to get started this weekend. Academy and Bernalillo are both on the road. Academy's playing at Portales. Bernalillo's playing at Lovington. Both of these games are Friday night. So we're going to see about Academy and Bernalillo. Both of these teams have had fantastic seasons to date. Both of them awesome defenses, but these are by far, in my opinion, the best teams either one of them will have played so far this year. So we're gonna get a better idea about how Academy and Bernalillo look this week and how that district might shake out down the road. So, and we'll certainly recap those next week. As I mentioned earlier, Farmington's coming down here to Albuquerque to play Sandia on Friday night at Wilson Stadium. Both these teams are undefeated in district. Like I said, Sandia hasn't yet had its bye week in district, so actually, I don't think they have a bye week now that I think about it. I believe they play Siebel at the end of the year, so Sandia is playing 4 straight games in district. So Sandia plays Farmington this week, and then they will play La Cueva the next week. So we're going to see how that game shakes out. Sandia's defense has been really good, and they'll need to continue to be good against Farmington this week. I wanted to talk for a second about Highland High School, which has won 4 games in a row. Highland is opening its district this week on Friday at Belen. This is an interesting game. Belen, for as many struggles as it has had, played a really tough game against Mayfield a couple of weeks back and lost it, I believe, 22-20. So Belen's certainly in this game, even though Highland's won 4 in a row. This is a game that could be extremely competitive and go down to the end. Piedra Vista is also in this district, which is going to be the favorite to win this district, along with, Miyamura is also in this district. But that is a really interesting 5A game, sort of below the radar. And then the last couple of games I wanted to mention, Jal and Yodice are playing in Class 2A. That is arguably the best 2A rivalry in New Mexico. Those schools are separated by just a few miles in the southeast part of the state, and they both play in that incredibly tough district. So we're going to see how that matchup shakes out. Jal's the defending state champion, but Yodice is incredibly solid, and I believe they're the new number 1 this week in the coaches poll. And then the last game, actually 2 games, that I wanted to mention on Saturday at 11 a.m. We've got La Cueva playing West Mesa at Wilson Stadium at 11 o'clock. Capital is down here to play Albuquerque High at 11 a.m. Saturday. Now, what makes this interesting is that these games are going to be starting right in the middle of the eclipse, the solar eclipse that is going on Saturday. So I spoke to the Albuquerque Public Schools athletic director, Adrian Ortega, and he said the lights are going to be turned on at both of these stadiums, even though it's at 11 o'clock start and lighting would not be an issue ordinarily. As the eclipse is going on, they're going to have the lights on at both these stadiums, which ought to really make for a really interesting experience, at least until the eclipse is over, which I think will end sometime in the first half. But the lights are going to be turned on at the two football stadiums, also at the APS soccer complex, which usually has games on Saturday morning. So those will be kind of interesting venues to be at if you happen to be there on Saturday and you're interested in observing the eclipse in a unique way. So we'll have a little bit of a fun viewing experience there on Saturday. So that sort of concludes the football part of it. Real quick, before we get out of here tonight, wanted to talk about a couple of non-football related items. So La Cueva's volleyball team, which had a 54-match winning streak against New Mexico competition, saw that streak end last Tuesday. We did the podcast last Tuesday. That night, La Cueva went out and got beat by Las Cruces High School in 4 sets. That was a matchup here in Albuquerque. La Cueva had beaten 54 straight New Mexico opponents going back to September 11th of 2021. So that match streak is over. And Las Cruces High, very impressively, last week beat La Cueva. They beat Cibola. They beat Rio Rancho Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and those three are pretty much the three best teams here in the metro area. So Las Cruces has clearly established itself as the team to beat at the moment in Class 5A volleyball. It's not going to run through La Cueva. At least not. We'll see how state plays out, of course. But Las Cruces has clearly established itself as the best team in 5A. They're fun to watch. Keith Leupold, a longtime coach with the school, somebody I've known a long time. He's doing a great job there, as always. So we'll see how La Cueva rebounds. La Cueva shouldn't have any major issues in its district. We'll see if La Cueva and Las Cruces run into each other again at the state tournament in November, how that pans out. And then last thing I wanted to mention were the Metro Cross Country Championships last weekend here in Albuquerque. Rio Rancho's boys, who have been dominant all year, and the Albuquerque Academy girls won the team titles individually. Gianna Raymer from El Dorado, she won her 5th race of the year, 5 out of 5. Charlie Voss from Rio Rancho won the boys race. He's won 5 of his 6 races. So those two continue to be really dominant. The next major race we have will be the Academy pre-state race, which is coming up on October 21st. We'll have a huge field there at Academy as the runners and teams get a look at the state tournament course, which will be held at Academy in early November. So that kind of wraps it up. Once again, if you want to view this podcast, it's available at abqjournal.com on our podcast network. If you need to reach me or want to have any suggestions for me, you can find me through email, Yodice, Jyodice, at abqjournal.com. And you can certainly reach me on my Twitter account, at James D. Yodice. If you have anything you want to talk about or mention to me or you'd like me to visit with about in any sport, really, just drop me a note and we'll get to it. You can view all our podcasts, including this one, the Midweek Blitz, Geoff Grammer's Lobo podcasts, which are very popular, of course. You can find them also at abqjournal.com. In the meantime, have fun with the football this weekend, and if you want to experience our podcast visually or just audio, read, hear, watch, enjoy them, and we'll talk again next week.